Great to see everybody here tonight, this evening. Please be seated if you're standing there. And welcome to all of you out there that are watching on the internet also that are being part of this class. It's great that you're able to attend. So we'd like to thank you again to another class of the Peaceful Solution Character Education Program Teacher Certification course. And this is the course where you get to hear straight from teachers who've been doing this for a long time. And there's some of you out there who've been doing it a long time also. But we're here and assigned to this job at this time. And so we look forward to the opportunity to share different situations that we've had in teaching the Peaceful Solution and what's worked for us and the things that we've seen, in hopes that you can also bring forth your teaching style of the Peaceful Solution. You do get an opportunity to see how, though all of us are in unity in what we're teaching, that there is a little bit different style with each one of the teachers, you know. And so it puts a little bit different, it gives a little bit of variety, you know. But the bottom line is that the basic concept of the Peaceful Solution has not changed. We are all in agreement with it, and we work together on it. That being said, let's go on over. Well, before we go to page 21, that's where we're going to be going to, but let's go back for a moment and look. I want to go back. There was something that Catan said in the last class. He was reading the note to the teacher on lesson plan 2, page A. And in that last class, down towards the bottom, it says, as educators, we know that simply instructing a child to read a book will not make the child capable of reading. By the way, we're in the responsibility unit, if I didn't mention that earlier. Will not make the child capable of reading. We must teach a child to read step by step. So think about that in whatever your day-to-day occupation is. I know I see, a carpenter or two in here. Wouldn't it be strange if somebody came to learn how to be a carpenter and you were going to show them how it's done, and you said, okay, we're putting this, we're going to put this siding on this dwelling over here, go to work. And they're like looking at you. They've never held a saw in their hand, don't know how, the first thing about cutting siding or what it looks like even probably, and how to attach it and so forth, never had a tape measure in their hand or one that they were going to use to any extent probably. But wouldn't it be silly if you just said, go put that siding on, just like telling a child, go read that book. Catan mentioned that. He said it would be strange, you just tell, 4-year-old, 5-year-old, whatever he said, go read that book. And they look at you with a blank stare because they haven't learned to read yet, So how interesting it is that we, as adults and our parents and the entire world, we tell people, well, don't steal. You're not supposed to steal. Boom, that's where it stops, I mean, there might be a few little examples that they see in the paper or something, but there's never really any in-depth teaching that goes into it. And really it's because they haven't known the depth of stealing that we in the Peaceful Solution know about. So, and so think about that. So I mentioned carpenter. What if you were a mechanic and you told somebody that came to work with you, you told them, okay, go over there and rebuild that engine. They just look at you with a blank stare like, well, I don't even know how to get the engine out of the car. What are you talking about? And the same, I think about it in sales, there's they say some people have a knack of, they were born with the sales ability. Well, that's not true. Some people can talk people into things, but they're not really selling the item. They're doing more talking about themselves and so forth. But those ones that get thrown out there and you just say, okay, go sell that, go sell that item. And they don't know anything about the item, don't know anything about selling the item. All they know is to go out there and talk to the people. Well, they might get some sold, but it wouldn't be to the degree that they could if they were trained properly on how to do so. So let's keep that in mind. That statement As educators, we know that simply instructing a child to read a book will not make the child capable of reading. We must teach a child to read step by step, and in like manner, we must teach our children and adults and everybody that there are specific traits and attitudes that they need to acquire if they are to develop responsible characters. So those traits, the positive character traits that we look forward to building in our lives and developing in our lives, there's plenty of them, and nothing occurs overnight. You can read the whole list of positive character traits, and you can say to yourself, that's what I'm going to do. It's not going to occur overnight. You have to work on it. You have to study it. You have to practice. You're going to make mistakes. You're going to come back and say, okay, I messed up that time, and you're going to try again, Giving yourself, of course, room to grow. I always like to mention that, don't kick yourself too hard. But nevertheless, you do want to kick it in gear and determine in your mind to do better next time. And then that word attitude, those attitudes, the author of The Peaceful Solution mentioned it several times. And attitude is that thing that you can actually see it in a person. If a person has a pessimistic attitude, man, you can see that quickly because they're complaining about everything. They're walking around like they just ate a sour pickle. Nothing goes their way. Everything is someone else's fault. I mean, you know the deal. And then you can see someone with a positive attitude, and you can see that for the most part, that person is joyful. A lot of times might even have a smile on their face, and pleasant to talk to. It's not like you walk up to them and say, how's it going? And you hear about all the horrible things that are occurring in the world and how their great-grandmother just had surgery for gout or something. I mean, you start hearing about all this. A positive person isn't going to really go into all that detail and everything. They're going to keep the conversation positive and something that is useful, And so that attitude is something that we should strive for, to have that positive attitude. I mean, it's not to say that from time to time, even the person with a positive attitude might bust off and get a little frustrated or something, or might get even a little bit angry at something taking place. But what that person with the positive attitude will do is, first of all, they're less likely to have one of those things occur. But then when it does, then they handle it better. They handle it in a way that does not include rage and throwing a fit and cussing people out and fighting and so forth and so on. So that's the thing that we want to look forward to, is being a person with a positive attitude. And the little flyer that I show sometimes, or a little poster I show sometimes, it says attitude is everything. It really is. Even with this program right here. If you have the attitude of I don't know of anyone out here or anyone on the internet that was like forced to take these classes, I don't think. But, if you have a positive attitude, you're going to want to be taking the classes. And if you have a negative attitude, then you're like, I got to go to that thing again. You're not going to learn anything, So attitude makes a difference, okay? So like it says, in like manner, we must teach our children that there are specific traits and attitudes that they need to acquire if they are to develop responsible characters. Let us, through education, give our children the skills they need to become conscientious, caring, and hardworking adults. Yeah, I hope they're conscious. If they're not conscious, I don't know what they'd be doing. But and they have to have that right attitude, not belittling people and everything. Let's go on over. Ton already introduced us to the first and second procedure, and which brings us to page 21. Page 21, and he started off on that page 2. We'll just go ahead and start right there after the title where it says Chapter 2, Developing Responsible Character, and the introduction. So developing the trait of responsibility, and he mentioned it too, but developing, that word developing, again, it's building, it's growing, it's wanting to it's one layer upon another layer. It's developing. You have to work at it. The trait of responsibility is a process. It takes a while. That occurs gradually. And this is a duty. If we're going to be a teacher of the peaceful solution, or if we even want to, let me be careful how I phrase this, because anybody practicing the peaceful solution, when you're around other people and your family and so forth, you're teaching. By your actions, you're teaching. You don't necessarily have to be, here on the podium and talking about this and everything. You're teaching every day through your actions, and that's something to be aware of, because people are watching you, and especially if you're known as a teacher of the peaceful solution, or that you are a participant and actually practicing the peaceful solution, more eyes will be upon you, and that's actually to help us, if you will. Let's see. So each duty that you fulfill brings you one step closer to becoming responsible. Each duty that you fulfill. And so this is a duty that we need to fulfill, this teaching the peaceful solution. In fact, becoming a responsible person, that's a duty too. Becoming that responsible person, a respectful person, a person who practices self-control, and so on, which we're going to talk a little bit more about self-control too in a minute. But becoming a responsible person can be compared to building a brick wall. Now, I've got a picture of that somewhere. Let me just show you. Well, the guy down here at the bottom, it's on the overhead, right there. Boy, that's a little tough there. You can see that guy right there behind the brick wall. So. In another part of in another one of the books, it shows him behind the brick wall and being attacked by all these things coming his way. But in his building of the bricks, those bricks are, if you could consider it, part of those traits that you're building your great character with. The acceptance, the respect, the self-control, the compassion, that's what those bricks, that's what that wall is made of, that you can have in front of you to protect you from all these negative things coming your way. You got to have all those things, and they do work synergistically. They work together to build this great positive character in you. All right, so that's comparing it to that brick wall. The choices you make to do your chores, complete your homework, or your job, or anything going on with your job, you take care of your pets, etc., are like bricks that build responsible character. Every time you do something, you're laying another brick on that wall. Every time you show compassion, you're laying respect, you're laying another brick. Being responsible, doing one of these things, you're laying another brick. Showing that you're respectful to not only your parents or your boss or other co-workers or family members. Each time you're putting another brick there in that wall. So think about it. One brick alone can't form the wall. It takes many bricks. It takes all those things like we're talking about, layered one on top of the other. And this goes back to developing and it being a process. You have to get each one of these things. None of it comes overnight. I mean, I know a lot of people that are practicing the peaceful solution, and I know several teachers of the peaceful solution, and I can tell you that no one considers themselves perfect at this time. And I'm sure if you got an opinion from somebody else, they would agree with that too. So there's nobody that's perfect at this right now. We keep on learning. It's a lifetime process. It's part of life. It's what you become. It's that it's that reward. The reward is actually in practicing these things. Because, yes, you're becoming a better person, and you receive great reward in that. There's not a pot of gold waiting for you at the end of a rainbow or some foolishness like that. It is real, it is true, and it's within you, and nobody can ever take it from you. That's the neat thing, too, is that this great moral character that we're developing and building, this great process, as you grow in it, nobody can take it from you. You can give it away, but nobody can take it from you. You can hold on to this thing. All right. So let's see. Well, anyway, it takes many bricks layered one on top of another in the same manner. One responsible act will not make you a responsible person. For example, you completed your homework, cleaned your room only once a year. Not only would you be in a lot of trouble and living in a pigsty, but you would also be irresponsible. It takes repeatedly fulfilling your obligations. Repeatedly, that means, you can't just do it one time and forget about it. Repeatedly fulfilling your obligations and being accountable for your actions. And being accountable is that when you do something, you fess up to it. If it involves other people, you let them know, yeah, I did that, and this is what I'm working on, and I hope that this doesn't occur again. I'm really working hard on it, so please point it out if it does again. But being accountable. If something gets broken, you're accountable because you pay for the item to replace it or what have you. That's just an example. Anyway, so being accountable for your actions over a period of time before you can be considered responsible. Nobody's going to see you being accountable one time. I mean, you're known, you have a reputation, your reputation precedes you, and you might have a reputation of not being very accountable. Not being willing to fess up to something being your problem and that you need to take care of it. And then if you do it right one time, people aren't going to automatically say, hey, that guy's an accountable person, really responsible, It has to take place over and over and over again for your reputation to change. And then people have that attitude of you, that you have a responsible, positive attitude and are accountable for your actions. But it takes time, especially if you already have kind of that little bit of a negative going, So every day you will be given opportunities. And I like that word opportunities, when people have situations come their way. And I was trying to think of one here that I used to see a lot. I remember a young man that was helping out at a shop that I worked at, and the young man would, and this was in Arkansas, but the young man, he would, if you came out and told him, oh, we just had another car come in or something, he would look at you like, oh, really? Oh, man, I was just about to get done with this one, And I'm like, hey, man, look at it as an opportunity. It's an opportunity for you to show what you can do and to keep on working. And occasionally I know people have been called sometimes after hours or maybe on their day off or something like that. And I'm not talking about anybody in particular. This goes far and wide, okay? Have been called. I remember working with a few people, and they didn't really want to take the time to go and do this extra thing, if you will. Probably not going to get paid for it, It's just something that would help everybody. And I told him, I said, look, you got to look at that as an opportunity, because that's an opportunity for you to grow, for people to see your growth, in fact. Not that we're wanting to show everybody any certain thing, but yes, we do want people to take notice for our reputation, if you will. That's what takes place with a reputation. People notice you. They notice what you're doing. They notice your day-to-day attitude. They notice your day-to-day work ethic. You know, William talked about here, I think it was 2 classes ago, might have been 3, but 2 classes ago, he talked about the work ethic some. And that work ethic shows through just like that positive attitude. In fact, those two go hand in hand. A positive work ethic, a positive attitude about your work. You know, it goes hand in hand. And so look at these things. I kind of laughed because it said, every day you will be given opportunities. Okay, that's worded in a very positive way, because a person could look at it and say, you know, every day you're going to be given challenges. You're going to be given trials and tests, and things are going to come your way that you'll get to see how far you're coming along in the peaceful solution. Somebody comes up and just knows which buttons to push on you. Look at it as an opportunity to grow. If you mess up and you start calling the guy names, or you get in a fight or something like that, just remember you can start over again, and don't kick yourself too hard. Well, if you hit somebody, kick yourself pretty hard, but you have an opportunity to start over again and have a positive attitude about it. Again, this is not for anyone in particular. So all of you out there on the internet and people that I've worked with over the years, myself included, we all get these opportunities to develop responsibility from day to day. We just have to have the right attitude and the right positive work ethic to make it work to our advantage. I hope I was kind of clear on that. At least as clear as mud, probably. But okay, and make the right decisions to fulfill your duties. It's up to you to make the best of each opportunity, to have a positive attitude and make the right decisions to fulfill your duties and obligations. So what's going to come your way when given that opportunity and having that positive attitude to make the right decisions? You will have to think about things. Remember the STOP acronym. Stop, think, consider your options, and then proceed with the right choice. You have to make right decisions, right choices to fulfill your duties and obligations. And I'm going to say it like the author of The Peaceful Solution. He said, you know, you got to go over and above the job. And I didn't quote him exactly, but kind of paraphrasing, over and above the call of duty. I'm not talking about a video game or anything either. I'm talking about whatever your job is, you go over and above. You put forth that extra effort. Whatever it is you're doing, you put forth that extra effort. I remember a woodshop teacher I had one time, and he taught me, though I didn't like it at the time, but he taught me how to get a nice flat surface on some very nice wood that we were working with and making decorative items out of. I would take, he said, go sand this down. And, you know, he had taught us how to do things right. And so then now's our time to show what we know. And he would hand me this board, and not only me, but everybody. And he would say, okay, go sand this down and bring it to me when you're ready to go to the next grit to start smoothing it out and everything. I said, okay. Go away for a little while, sand on it some, feel it, and say, oh, that feels great. You take it back to him. He looks at it for a minute. He takes a pencil out, and he goes like that right there all over it. And he goes, now, go sand that pencil mark out of there. Well, if you went back and wanted to try to shirk the job and didn't have a positive attitude about it, and you went back and you took a piece of sandpaper and just sanded off the pencil mark, didn't sand the whole board, what you would have is that groove in it, and he would know exactly what you did. And he would look at you, and this time it would be a thicker, heavier pencil mark when he handed it back to you. And he would say, now, go sand the board. Don't sand the mark, sand the board. And then when you finally, and then he said, once you think you have it right, do it a little bit more, and then bring it to me. And sure enough, over a period of time, we learned that, hey, you might as well have it right the first time before you take it to the teacher. So So we learned, though. It was an opportunity for us to learn, or we could take it as with a negative attitude and complaining and everything about it and not learn anything from it, which many people did. All they did was complain about him. Oh, you see what he did. So that's just an example of having the right attitude and going that extra little bit. Once you think you got it, then go a little bit more and then call me. Same thing with when you're getting ready to paint something like a car, for instance, and you've got to do some sanding on it, and you're trying to get done and everything. You think you're done, and then here comes the professional painter, and he looks at it and says, well, we got a little more work to do here. Look, go ahead and just work on it till you think you got it perfect, and then give me a call and I'll come look at it. But when you think you got it done, go a little bit more. Just do a little bit more, and that's something to keep in mind. I'm sure many of you have probably heard similar things or experienced similar things. So anyway, in this chapter, we're going to learn that the foundation for developing a responsible character begins with, guess what? Self-control. We've talked a little bit about it tonight already. In fact, in our self-control unit, let's see, page 4. Page 4 in the self-control unit. I know most of you wouldn't have this with you, possibly, but on page 4 in our self-control unit, it says, what is self-control, okay? Because, we went through this a couple books ago, but anyway, what is self-control? Well, controlling, that is guiding or directing what you think, because thoughts lead to feelings. Remember that? When you think of something, there's a feeling that's going to come from that. Controlling what you feel, because feelings lead to actions. You got to really snap it in line there. If you didn't control your thoughts quite well enough, and now your feelings are starting to tick off over there into left field or something, you need to go ahead and latch onto it and pull it back in. Because the next thing is actions. Controlling how you behave, because these decisions lead to actions which lead to rewards or consequences. And that's what we have to remember. So controlling what you think, and remember, of course, there's more to it than this. This is the short story. There's more to it. There's a trigger there also many times. It's just like controlling what you think. Maybe you walked in and you smelled a certain smell that you remember. I know somebody that spent some time in jail had mentioned that there was a certain smell that they would never forget. It's when a cell was cleaned out. There was a holding cell that didn't have any kind of furniture in it whatsoever. I guess they call it a drunk tank is what it would be. But there was a certain smell that went along with that drunk tank that they said they would never forget. And in every jail they had been to, which I guess they spent a little time in that drunk tank, but every jail they had been to, it smelled the same. And it wasn't, puke and everything like you might imagine. It was whatever it was used to clean it. He said it had kind of like a bleachy type smell, but yet not bleach. He was trying to describe it and couldn't quite get the words out. But he said every time he smelled that smell, whether he was at a jail or wherever it was at, that immediately made him start thinking about jail and thinking about the things he went through and thinking about what led to that. And sometimes he did not control his feelings, and he got back into all that and wallowing in it and everything, and went off and did something crazy again that could have landed him right in that same hole. So that trigger, remember, there's a trigger there. And so once we know what our triggers are too, I didn't mean to get too far into this. I just wanted to mention, self-control. So controlling what you think, because it leads to feelings, controlling what you feel, because feelings lead to actions, and then controlling how you behave, because decisions lead to actions which lead to the reward or the consequence, the positive or the negative. And then always remember this, that self-control is the foundation of moral behavior. When you practice self-control, you stop and carefully consider whether your thoughts and feelings will lead to actions that are morally correct and in your best interest. In fact, you can't even have responsibility without having self-control. You can't have respect. You can't have compassion. You can't have any of these things without having that determination and that moral fiber there to keep on going and practice self-control. You have to have that. It is the foundation, and that's why they call it the foundation. So in this chapter, you will learn that the foundation for developing a responsible character begins with self-control. You will also learn that by treating others with respect and compassion and consistently having a positive work ethic, you can begin the process of becoming a responsible person. And every time I see that word respect, it just makes me think of all the many times that we've heard in dealing with schools, and I mean this is like everybody, okay? And I've even heard it from people that have been practicing the peaceful solution for some years that they hadn't quite got past this thing yet about respect. See, a lot of people think that you have to give respect to get it. Let me say that again. A lot of people think you need to give respect to get it. All right? Now, if you're agreeing with that statement right there, you need to adjust a little bit, because everybody deserves respect. It doesn't matter if the person is giving you respect or not giving you respect. Everybody deserves respect. And it's like William, I remember him, he liked to do this in the schools, and I don't know if I could say it exactly like he did, but he would always pose the question, well, so if you're waiting for someone to, if your attitude is that you have to give respect to get respect, well, what are you going to do when you meet somebody? Who's going to be the first one to give it? If you're waiting for someone to give you respect so you can give them respect back, then which one of you is going to do it first? I mean, think about it. Sounds a little bit silly, doesn't it? But if we approach each other with the attitude, remember the attitude of respect, then there will be a positive interaction taking place. Now, hey, it's not 100% guaranteed that that person is going to also respect you, but that doesn't mean that you need to bust off and start doing something crazy to them. You can show your self-control and your respect and your compassion towards that individual and your care and be a responsible person and show respect no matter what they do. And that's something important to remember. But I always think about that. When I see that word respect, that's the first thing that pops into my mind, is that, because we heard it from everywhere. The schools, it doesn't matter. Washington, D.C., lawyers, senators, representatives, everybody, teachers in all the schools. I don't know of any school or anybody that we've ever posed that to that answered that properly. They all have been taught that you've got to give respect to get it. So, if I give respect, does that automatically show that that person's going to give it back to me? No. See? It's kind of silly. So we just have to remember that everybody deserves respect. We want to respect everybody. And if they don't respect us, that's them. We still want to show respect to them, okay? All right, so, but anyway, you will also learn that by treating others with respect and compassion and consistently having a positive work ethic, you can begin the process of becoming a responsible person. And that positive work ethic, that's something that I'm not sure. I know there's people that teach that today, and I know there's different supervisors and bosses and owners and everything and so forth that teach a positive work ethic. But somewhere along the way, it's gotten lost. At least from the articles I see and the things that I hear about people sitting at home and not going to work, a 30-year-old man sitting at home playing video games instead of going out and going to his job, because he deserves that. It's part of his life, and he deserves to be able to play those video games, That's crazy. Does anybody else think that's crazy? I mean, it's just absolutely nuts. So if someone had a positive work ethic, they're going to be ready and get out there and go to work. And most of the time, I mean, I remember an owner of one of the dealerships I worked at, and I always looked forward to being the first one in that door. I had a key to the dealership, and I was the first one in that door, except for the service department. I was the first one in that door, and I enjoyed hearing the owner say, hey, Knighton, am I ever going to get in here before you? I was like, no, you're not. So, and you know what that does? It builds that reputation of having a positive work ethic, of having a positive attitude about your job, and it lets that person see that you really care. It's very interesting. I know somebody that calls me every day, boom, at the same time, just ready to go over, what's going on today and everything, and I appreciate that. I can always look forward to it. Sometimes I'm doing things which I can't even take the call, and it might seem like somewhat of a disturbance or something, but no, it's not. It just means I can't take it at that moment. But for the most part, I do try to be able to be available and take that call. And when that call doesn't come, I know there's something wrong. See, so, anyways, have a positive work ethic and be a responsible person. Let's go over here. We've got a pop quiz on page 22. Now, this was included in that procedure number 2, I think. Yeah, procedure number 2, the pop quiz was included in that, found on page 22. Let's go on over to it. Page 22 in our responsibility unit. All right, so take the following quiz to determine if you are on your way to developing a responsible character. And you don't have to answer anybody around you. You don't have to answer me. This is for you if you're honest about it, all right? Don't cheat. It doesn't help to cheat. Be honest. So I do my chores. Now, of course, this might be talking about a teenager, at their house, for you teenagers out there, you young people. But it's also talking about us adults, too. We have chores also. We have things that we've got to do around our dwelling. We have things we've got to do, too. Not only did we go to our job and have that positive work ethic and that positive attitude about everything, but then we came home and had a positive attitude, too. And I know there's someone probably listening to me right now thinking, well, I want you to have a positive attitude about washing dishes. So, but when you do your chores, so I do my chores, A, only when there's someone to check up on me. Okay. B, and keep this in mind, that one right there, only when there's someone to check up on me. There's a lot of people like that. They don't care nothing about doing anything unless there's someone that's checking up on them. Even at their job, if they don't have that positive work ethic, they don't care nothing about doing what they think they ought to do. They're just going to do enough to get by unless they know there's someone checking up on them and going to, come in and see it. And then they'll, let me go ahead and do this, But I do my chores, job, etc. B, if I think I'm going to get in trouble. Okay, so to keep from getting in trouble, well, that's a motivator for some, If you think you're going to get in trouble, you might want to do your job so you don't get in trouble or lose your job or whatever the case might be. So, but when we can get to that point of always answering C, now, again, don't kid yourself. Be honest. I mean, come on. If you only do certain things, and you can break down whatever those chores or responsibilities are, you can break them down into, each individual item. And the thing that you don't like to do, if the only reason you do it is you think you're going to get in trouble, then you need to go ahead and circle B. But if we can get to that point to where we do our chores, our job, we are responsible for the things that we've been assigned and so forth, because it is the right thing to do. Because it's the right thing to do, not because somebody's watching you or you're going to get in trouble, but it's the right thing to do. Don't worry. Whoever needs to know is going to know. The boss is going to know. You don't have to go run and tell him. The boss is going to know. especially if you're doing it all the time, if this is a constant part of your behavior, of your attitude, your persona, everything, if this is you, I guarantee you it's going to be known, So, number 2, I do my homework, and homework includes a lot of things. For a school-age person, it might be they were assigned homework to do at home. For somebody trying to be the best carpenter they could possibly be, and I'm not talking to anyone in general, this is just in general, to be the best carpenter they could be, they might want to put a little time and study on their own, as in homework, and figure out how to make that dado cut, in the wood when they have limited equipment or something, or how to make that perfect 45-degree angle when they're doing some trim work inside a house, or, I could continue on. How to make that perfect cut. I know that's always evaded me a little bit, I mean, it makes it easier when you have some of the saws that are rigid and you could, turn it and set it for that angle and so forth. It does make it a little bit easier, but still, that's not guaranteed if you don't know what you're doing. But anyway, I do my homework when there's nothing great on TV, or like I said, my homework or my job work or whatever. When there's nothing great on TV, if I remember, or because education is important to me. All right. So if your job or your school or whatever is important to you, then that education about that certain thing is important to you. Then you don't mind doing some, quote, home job work, home school work, some home work to increase your education and increase your ability to do what it is you do to the best of your ability. All right, so let's look at number 3. And number 3 brings up a point. In back there talking about developing that responsible character and having a positive attitude and so forth, we have to be aware of that peer pressure, the people around us. And we have to be aware of all the influences around us that can have such an extreme effect on us, whether positive or negative. So it seems like the negative influences around us seem to take hold a lot faster than the positive ones do sometimes. But if my friends try to talk me into doing something wrong, I would, A, go along with them because they're my friends. Well, a lot of us have in the past. That peer pressure is strong, man. I mean, if you want to be accepted into the group and so forth, it is very, very strong. So be aware of that one. So, A, go along with them because they're my friends. Well, if that's taking place all the time, you need to probably circle that A. All right, so pretend to agree with them so that they won't stop being friends with me. Okay, so pretend to agree. You're sitting there smiling with them. Yeah. And even though you don't go and do what it was that they were going to do, sitting there pretending that it's okay, that's not right. That's an even harder one to deal with than the first one, because people have this attitude about not wanting to stand out, not wanting to have any conflict, if you will. So pretending to agree with them, even though they're planning something wrong so that they won't stop being your friends. Well, you don't need those kind of friends that are planning to do stuff wrong and trying to get you included in there. But nevertheless, if that's you, circle that B right there. Or if my friends try to talk me into do something wrong, I would be truthful and say, I'm not interested. Boy, you got to be bold to do that one right there. When you look at your friends, the ones you want to be accepted by, the ones that you want everyone to like you, and do the things you want to do and all that stuff, and you look at them and say, I'm not interested in that, and you shouldn't either. That's bold, and that's strong. You have to have courage to do that, too. Yes, you have to be brave. You have to have courage. All right, let's look at number 4. I do my best work. A, if I'm getting paid for it. Okay. Put those hands down. What are y'all talking about? No. I do my best work if I'm getting paid for it. Okay, well, we all want to get paid for whatever it is we do that we've agreed that, okay, I'll do this and you pay me this, right? We do want to get paid for that. And we do want to do a great job. But, if that's the only time you're doing your best work, and hopefully you are doing at least, your best work for the person that is paying you. But if that's the only reason you're doing it, we need to think again. But if it is, that's circle A. Okay, B, I do my best work if I'm doing it to impress someone. There you go. You got an audience around, or someone's going to see it and they're going to say, man, look at that, and get all that praise and everything. So if you're doing it just to impress someone, but yet look at C. What if you do your best work, regardless of if you're getting paid for it, or regardless if someone's around or even going to see it, but because it's the right thing to do? So you're doing something that no one's ever going to see. You're framing up you're under a bridge and you have to put some reinforcements in there. No one's going to crawl up there and check on you or anything, but you were hired to do it, and no one's going to come and inspect it, for at least years down the road. And so you could go up under there and you could just sling stuff up under there and not really care, or you could do the job right because it's the right thing to do. Or because you're building something on the inside of a closet that no one's ever going to turn around and look at the back wall. They walk through the door of the closet and they're just getting their stuff out of it and everything, and they never turn around and look around the door frame on the closet door to see where you messed everything up. You know what? You could probably look in a bunch of the houses out there right now today and go out there and do that and just walk in a closet or a pantry or something like that and turn around and look at the trim around the door, and you might find that there wasn't near as much care taken care of because no one's going to see it, or that the paint really wasn't painted. It wasn't painted properly because guess what? No one's going to see it. But if you have the attitude that you want to do the right thing, now, if the person you work for has told you, the person that pays you has told you that it is your job to not finish painting the inside of that door, then you better not paint the inside of that door. You're hired by him to do that thing. That's his responsibility. And so that's going to be his reputation on the line. So, but nevertheless, you do your best work, C, because it's the right thing to do. So, and there might be some questions on that last statement right there, but it really is true. You got to do what your boss tells you to do. If he's buying the materials and he's paying you to do a certain job, then you got to do the job he's paying you to do. I remember when I painted ships, and I wanted those things to be like perfect, like I was painting a car or something, like I was painting a hot rod. I wanted it to be perfect. And even though they liked my work and everything, one day the supervisor came by and said, David, you do a great job and all that stuff, but I need you to speed up a little bit. He said, this is not a car. You need to speed up and let's get this job done. I said, yes, sir. And it took me a little while to get to knowing exactly what they wanted, the degree of, what you might call perfection or something that they wanted. But I learned and everything was fine. But if I just thought to myself, oh, no, I ain't doing that. If it ain't going to be right, I ain't going to do it. Well, right in my eyes and right in his eyes might have been two different things, you see? So didn't mean to get too deep into that, but we do have to remember that we have to be respectful to the authority over us and do what they tell us to do. All right, so I follow instructions. This is number 5. I follow instructions, A, if I like the person who's instructing me. Oh boy, well, I think that would be, pretty much a given that the person instructing you, if you like him, you're probably going to do it. But we also need to do it no matter what, right? Okay, B. I like this one. Look at that. I follow instructions when I feel like it. Okay. Well, let's hope that we feel like it all the time. But anyway, C, if you're doing one of those things, go ahead and circle A or B, don't hold back. But I follow instructions. The right answer is C, because being obedient shows respect, okay? And that goes into what we were just talking about too, about doing what the boss tells you to do. All right, so then there's number 6. If I do not feel comfortable doing something, I would, A, do it anyway in order to fit in. Oh, man, I would bet that all of us have done that at one point in time or another, but hopefully we're not doing it now. B, not do it, but pretend that I did. That's an interesting one there. Don't hold back. Go ahead and circle it if that's you. Number C, if I do not feel comfortable doing something, I would C, make a choice that will enable me to develop positive character. Okay, so there's a lot in all of that, and it does require a little bit of critical thinking when you think about those things, because there's so much involved in it. It's just like that one question. I'll go back to it for a minute. But 4, I do my best work. C, because it's the right thing to do. Okay, remember what you consider your best work and what the person paying you to do a job that wants your best work to this certain degree, you've got to do what they tell you to do, and that is part of being respectful, part of being responsible, and that is the right thing to do. Okay, so anyway, didn't mean to get too deep into that deal. But you've got to get deep into some of this when you're looking at those things and you're asked a question like that. Don't just be quick to answer. Look at it and really think about it. And remember that others around us, there might be a lot of people in this room that answered, not everything with the letter C. They might have answered something letter B or letter A or something, right? And so we have to remember that we're all on different levels of learning, are we not? Some have entered into this program back when it was first designed and put out there. Others haven't entered this program until, a month ago or a week ago or 2 days ago or what have you. And so we have to remember to have that care and the respect for that individual and the compassion for that individual, that when they do something, we don't just lash out at them and jump in their face. We can kindly let them know that, well, I try to do it this way because blah, blah, blah. It doesn't have to be so blunt. Or you can refer it to someone else, maybe one of the peaceful solution counselors or something that can work with the individual, or might already be working with them. We don't know. I know one of the teachers that I know very well, he gets a lot of calls from a certain area in Texas, and people ask him a lot of questions, and he helps those people to deal with the things and things going on in their life and other people and so forth. But we just have to be aware of those things and know that somebody might be dealing with them already on whatever it is they did that you didn't like, and that might be actually something wrong. Does that make sense? Okay, well. Okay, so just real briefly here, let's go back to lesson plan 2, page C, lesson plan 2, page C. And if you look at the second procedure, down there where it's talking about the pop quiz, it says allow time for students to complete the pop quiz found on page 22. Explain that A and B answers are not choices that a responsible person would make. Okay? Now, someone learning the peaceful solution might still be doing some of those things. They might make those choices, but let's hope they get away from it pretty quick. Emphasize that knowing which areas they need improvement on is an excellent way to begin the process of developing responsibility as a character trait. And there's even one of those things I was reading as we were going through that. There was one of those things in the pop quiz that I looked at, and I thought for a minute, and I thought, wow, have I done that lately? Actually going back and looking at it, I think there's 2 things there that I have to look at, and I have to ask myself, have I done that lately? It's not my practice to do something stupid like that, but it's possible that I might have done one of these things. So, I want to keep it in mind if I have. I want to answer honestly on these things. And we should. Okay, so knowing which area that we need improvement on is the excellent way to begin that process of developing this responsibility. Then it goes on. We'll start procedure 3 here for a minute. We don't have much time, but Procedure 3, explain to students that many people are responsible in some areas, and it's going to get explained throughout the next few classes, but responsible in some areas, but their goal should be to become consistently responsible in all areas of their lives. And I would venture to say that's just about everybody. There's some area of our life which we're highly responsible in. Even people that haven't really heard of the Peaceful Solution, they might have an area of their life that they are just like really up there on, and really have this great attitude about that they would never do that thing, or that they always complete the tasks that are set before them, So there are people that do some pretty great things sometimes, but they might not be practicing, they might not being responsible in all areas of their life. Consistently responsible in all areas. And that's the key. And that's kind of what that pop quiz was about, to get us to look at a few different things, So it goes on to say, and this is for, this is, of course, the teacher's manual, tell students that the deciding factor between a responsible and an irresponsible person is self-control, which we've talked about already a little bit. The self-control, it's the foundation of a great moral character. It's the foundation of responsible behavior. You've got to have it or else you can't do it. Plain and simple. And that's why a lot of people think they can jump right to the self-control unit and start right there. Because they do understand that, man, they need to have some self-control, some discipline, A lot of teachers and administrators and everything always wanted us to start right at self-control. But you really can't do it. You got to have all of it, and you have to have it in the proper order to get the full benefit of it, to be able to be responsible in all areas of your life, not just and really by demanding that jump to self-control first is showing a lack of responsibility, consistently being responsible in all areas, because you're choosing to bypass all the important stuff that leads you to being able to practice self-control in the proper way. Okay, anyway, it's self-control. That's the difference between a responsible and irresponsible person. And then it says refer students to the section S is for self-control, found on pages 23 and 24. And that's going to be where we take over, or we take off at in the next class. So be ready for page 23 in your responsibility unit. And the next class is actually going to be here in a few days, on Wednesday, December 20th at 5:30 p.m. December 20th, coming up there on Wednesday at 5:30 p.m. for another class of the Peaceful Solution Character Education Teacher Certification course. So we look forward to everybody being there. And in fact, you could actually look at page 23 in your book and kind of get a little head start if you want to, because it talks about the pop quiz a little bit right there at the top. It says, so how did you do? Any question you answered A or B indicates that you are not responsible in those areas. And, if you even thought about those items that, like I mentioned, a couple of them, I thought, man, have I done that lately? And, you might want to focus on those areas a little bit more to make sure that you're doing it right. Questions that you answered C show that you are demonstrating responsibility in those areas. And remember, a responsible character means being responsible in all areas. So you could look at page 23. That's what we'll be starting on Wednesday in class. And so we look forward to seeing everybody again at 5:30 p.m. this Wednesday. And everybody out there on the internet, too. Thank you for being here.